First of all, Stuart, congratulations on this film. It is an incredible watch. For the true crime element to it, how hard is it to write a story in a true crime style?
That's a good question. It was an interesting challenge for sure because it's not like a, conventional movie in the sense that the whole movie is kind of built around these interviews, which are very much just you're watching people tell a story kind of. So I guess in some ways it was definitely different for that reason, and I had to be very cognizant of like I'm by my trade I'm an editor. So I
Mhm.
think when I wrote the script I was editing it in my head. So I just had to be aware of like how long kind of their dialogue would go on just so that it never got boring and there was always an interesting drama to it. So it was definitely a challenge, but it was a lot of fun.
And since you also directed it, keeping that pace for them, like you said, it could drag on, but your pacing is incredible. It gets to the point where you want to see what's happening, and you get that. As director, how do you build that pacing, and how do you know how long to keep it on them?
It's just something you kind of feel, I guess, in the edit. It's always a give and take, I suppose, especially with the violence and stuff like that, about how much you can show, how much you can't show, when to dole out the information. I don't know, it's a tricky thing, it's very much it's like music or something, I feel like when you're editing. There's like a natural rhythm to these things. So I think I tried to just take my time with it because I felt like a lot of these kind of programs that were from like the early 90s were very like cut really quick and like edited really crazy. And the newer ones, though, more modern documentaries are a lot slower. They take their time, they're paced out, kind of more like movies almost. So that's kind of what I was going for.
And one of the things that you expect from stories like this is a lot of action, a lot of violence. How different is it having to not shoot that and instead, have somebody explain what's going on?
It's a lot easier in a lot of ways. I mean, the interesting thing about the way we made this film is usually when you make a movie, you spend a bunch of time setting up your scene, getting your actors there, getting your set, your makeup, your props, everything takes a long time to set up the scene, and then it usually takes a long time to shoot the scene. You got your camera works, lights, all this kind of stuff, all these moving parts, and it's just a very complicated process that takes time. But for us, we only did one part of that process. We just did the first part, which is that we spent a lot of time setting up these murder scenes, these crime scenes, with a lot of meticulous detail, making sure that the bodies were perfect, the blood, the way everything was laid out. But then the second part of the process was a lot easier and a lot quicker than usually it takes with a normal movie. I mean, sometimes I would run around with the camera 10 minutes, we would spend all day, 4, 5, 6 hours just setting up a room. And then 15 minutes and we were done basically with the shooting. So it was a really different way to approach a movie, but it was cool.
That's awesome. That kind of reminds me of Quentin Tarantino's earlier films.
Sure, yeah.
Um, for you, I know I watch a lot of true crime dramas and stories. How much do you watch in order to get the feel of what makes a good true crime story?
I've been watching that stuff my whole life. I mean, I think it's been in me since I was a kid. I remember watching these kind of shows back in like the mid 90s or whatever when I was younger, and like just getting totally creeped out by these kind of shows when I was a kid, and I think I've just absorbed it through osmosis. And I think everyone kind of has in the culture, like the language of these kind of documentary programs is like something that we all kind of understand now. We kind of get the rhythm. And so that's kind of part of the reason why I thought it was a good time to make this movie is it felt like people would get it. Like people would understand what I was trying to do and go along for the ride.
Definitely. And your actors did a fantastic job. What was the process in getting your cast?
That was really putting a pretty open call out, and it was kind of like I didn't really have too many preconceived notions about like what I was looking for in terms of like ethnicity or age. And the only thing I even really necessarily was maybe hoping for was to get a male and a female, but even that was kind of up up for it was really just the best actor wins, whoever the best person was. And it just happened to be that it was Peter Zizzo and Terry Apple. They sent in tapes and it was pretty apparent almost immediately. It was just like these are the people, and it was hard because it's a tough performance. You have a camera just staring at your face this close, and there's nothing to hide, it's just them versus the camera basically. So
Mhm.
I just got very lucky with them, and they were just able to really not overplay anything and just keep it very grounded while at the same time, never getting boring, because there's this really sweet spot of being realistic and kind of delivering this police stuff in like a way that's kind of like a cop would deliver it, which is kind of dry and matter of fact. But then it can't be so dry and matter of fact that it lacks like drama and tension and stuff. So, but I just got really lucky, man. I found two awesome people.
Mm. Not only that, but you created a very incredible villain or a serial killer. Uh, it feels like he's very mysterious. He's definitely needed to be that, but it also has that looming supernatural kind of element to it. How difficult is it to create a villain like that, especially when you're trying to make him very grounded in reality?
It's always a challenge trying to come up with your villain, and it's so important that for me, that our killer was someone memorable, that was something, iconic and something unique about him. So, the main thing too, though, is just keeping it grounded, keeping it realistic. So I really just had to walk myself through the process of like, it couldn't just be like a random guy killing for no kind of reason. There had to be a thought process and like a logic there. So, even though it's only really hinted at, in the movie, there is this whole mythology and this whole entity, this whole thing that this killer believes in. He has this whole kind of cult thing
Hmm.
that he's worshiping, basically. And it's only hinted at throughout the movie, but I worked all of that stuff. So, there's an internal logic there that just kind of holds through. And then the other thing with the killer, of course, is always coming up with your killer's mask. The mask is so important. And our production designer, Jesse Clarkson, he's a brilliant guy. He also plays Mr. Shiny. He wanted to play it, and he designed the mask. And I think he just came up with such a cool design. It's very simple and subtle, but we have this thing in the movie that this planetary alignment of these three planets, and they kind of form a triangle. And if you look at the mask, that's what the mask is. It's just three planet alignment.
Definitely. And you're now bringing this to the festival circuit. What are the kind of reactions are you expecting from an audience once they get to watch this?
Well, I'm super stoked to be premiering this at Fantastic Fest. I think it's a great festival for this film. I think the festival crowd is gonna fucking love it. I think they're gonna lose their shit. I think they're gonna get it. They're gonna see what I'm trying to do with it, and I think yeah, I think they're gonna love it. But that said, I don't think that Strange Harvest is a movie that's just for like a niche kind of horror crowd. I think that, just like true crime really has such broad appeal from the horror weirdos like you and me, but then to like, suburban soccer moms or whatever, like everyone, whether they want to admit it or not, is secretly really fascinated by this kind of true crime stuff. So I think that this is a movie really honestly for just about anyone. I mean, I think most people are gonna be interested in this.
Since you made up a mythology for this villain, is there a possibility to have more stories come out of this universe?
100%, absolutely. I would love to do more of this. Even right now, I mean, in the movie, if, it's a movie you can watch 20 times and you'll still see something new every time. There's so many little Easter eggs and allusions to other stories that I'd like to tell. So, absolutely, Mr. Shiny and other things associated with the story could return in the future.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on this film. It is an amazing watch, and thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.